do a little bit of rehashing some of this, and I have a tendency to jump around, as you noticed. So
We'll keep you on track.
if we repeat some of that which we've already
Got many
done,
students tonight.
see,
See.
yeah, many students, many teachers. Now this is one of the things that the Course in Miracles, one of the Course in Miracles talks about the fact that we're all students and we're all teachers. Every given moment we're interacting with each other, we're sharing with each other, and the truth is, this world, if we looked and said, well, what is this world really all about? What are we doing? I would say we're all here honing ourselves. We're developing the ability to do exactly what Gary just said, to practice unconditional love in every moment. In order to do that, we have to have interactions with others. I mean, I could sit and say, okay, I'm unconditionally loving everything and everyone. All right,
And you have
beautiful.
no
Yeah,
contact
yeah,
with
yeah.
anybody.
Right.
I have no attachment to anyone or anything in this world. Look at me, I'm perfect. All right? But it's meaningless. I could go sit in a cave the rest of my days and say, I'm not touching this world, I'm just loving it.
Well, doesn't that sound like Buddha? Isn't that what he was doing, sitting in a cave?
Well,
detached and-
let me say, I believe that's what Buddha was doing to reach the state of understanding of what it was to be unconditionally loving. Then, he didn't stop at that. That's when he went back into the world.
Oh, he did.
And that's when Buddha started sharing this understanding. This is what Buddhism really stemmed from, was Buddha sharing his understanding with others. Right?
And sharing how you got there.
And sharing how he got there. That's what Buddhism
That was
really
the
is about.
The whole deal.
Buddhism, as I understand it, and I'm no expert by any means. I've read about a couple of paragraphs. Now I read about 3 pages on Buddhism and Buddha, enough to relate to where he was and what it was about. Where it's come today and what it's evolved into, who knows? I don't know. No different than Christianity, to me, is not reflective of what Christ was teaching. It's light years apart. I went back to the church where I used to belong, and I told the Monsignor there, after my experience, I said, Father, let me say this. I said, having a one-on-one with our Creator, I know that a few things. One, my religion was standing in the way of my knowing God. 2, you don't have to be a practicing Christian to go to heaven.
But just when you say practicing Christians, see, we are practicing Christians because we're all trying to bring out the best in everybody. We're just not going to church to practice.
Okay, when I say practicing Christian, I'm talking about following an organized religion. Okay,
And
so
because Christianity teaches that every single word in the Bible is the truth. And I don't believe that.
well, and again, see, here's where we're talking about organized religion and interpretation and
Yeah,
presentation
exactly.
of the dogma. When you say a practicing Christian, you are a practicing Christian. If you truly are, I would agree 100%. That's going to save you. That's going to bring you that experience, no question about it. And this is where we really need some more verbiage. We need other words to express what we're trying to say. Because if a fundamentalist Christian came in here and said, I'm a practicing Christian, they're most likely meaning, I'm going to church, I'm following the doctrine and the dogma as it's presented. But to me,
Which are presented in parables. How can you follow parables like that Baptist religion was trying to do?
well, again, the religions are teaching us good and evil. Christ was trying to bring us outside of that limited view and bring us to unconditional love, right? So truly, to be a true Christian would mean living in unconditional love in every moment, sharing it with everyone and everything. That's a true Christian. And if we practice that, hey, you don't need anything else. You don't have to follow another path.
You're talking about being Christ-like as opposed to a religious Christian.
There you go. Absolutely. Christ-like. And very, very few Christians. I remember when Suni and I first got together, and I remember her making a statement that she was searching for true Christians. And talking about even the ministers and saying, is this one a real Christian? Is this one a real Christian? And I understood that's what she was referring to, was, are they Christ-like? Or are they humans playing a role? You know, if we're playing a role as opposed to being Christ-like, those are worlds apart.
Church is beginning to judgment, finishing to judgment.
Yes, they begin in judgment, they finish in judgment.
Yeah, that's how they teach them.
Barry couldn't
Yes.
believe that, I'm sorry, but someone on the same path is that, Catholics, we weren't allowed to read the Bible, because we didn't have the divine knowledge to interpret it.
Right.
Exactly
I've
right.
never read a
He's like, "You know
Bible.
the Bible?"
And I had a top Sunday school student every year.
I went to a Catholic church because I was down on my luck one time many years ago. And they said, they walked right up to me because I wasn't doing all this stuff that they're doing, all these motions and the speaking back, you know, when someone says whatever. They were like, "You're not Catholic, are you?" And I was like, "Oh, well, no, but this is the closest church I knew of." And they were like, "If we get you to go sit back here." Sure, I'll sit anywhere you want.
They moved you back.
Well, just so the congregation wouldn't see me not knowing what I was doing.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And like the little children that they were trying
No,
to tease.
listen to this, I went to our,
It was kinda crazy.
Keeper's Haitian church,
Woo!
and they were all excited for Jesus. Well, all of a sudden this little girl sat next to me and she goes, "Hi, I'm your interpreter for the evening." So they actually went way out of their way there.
Oh yeah, I went to several black churches
But listen to
because it was
this,
in my neighborhood,
when they go
and they
up,
rocked.
when they go up to the
Roll.
offering or when they sing to Jesus, they act like strippers. You see these people, and they try to outdo each other. Oh, man.
Oh yeah, it's all a big
Roll.
show, and it's
Well,
about
it's-
who can be the, well, you
And they
know,
pass around
singing,
paper
dance
towels.
in the name of God.
At the end of every pew is a roll of paper towels to dry yourself off with.
Damn,
Whatever works.
Really?
Whatever works.
feel the spirit.
It was very. So what we're talking about is very, very appropriate to where we are right at the beginning. And that's where we are. We may have gotten past this already, but I'm going to go back into page 20 where we were in the beginning and talking about creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was moving over the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. That was Genesis 1:1-3. And after the experience that I had talking about looking at the world through spiritual eyes, I remembered hearing some of these things from catechism when I was a kid, and what it meant to me looking at it from the human view as opposed to the spiritual view that I had been shown. They're worlds apart. And so that's why I was saying this in the next one. After reading Genesis for myself, and as Megan said, we were not encouraged to read the Bible, so most Catholics don't read the Bible, or didn't at that time. Maybe they're starting to open up a little bit. After reading Genesis for myself, I realized how distorted my previous understanding was. In fact, the text spoke of many things that were not only different from, but often in direct contradiction to my past beliefs. Through my experience, I realized that if you are interested in an in-depth study of the Bible, you must find the time to be with it on your own. And this is because, just as I said that a lot of the Christians are not really Christ-like. The moment we hear a word, it conjures up a memory. And this is true of all of us. You're driving down the street and all of a sudden you hear a note on the radio, not a song or a note, two notes, and all of a sudden, boom, that song comes into your mind. Not only does the song come into your mind, but a memory. You know, we associate different things, different songs, smells, whatever, and all of a sudden these memories come right back in. And we're back sometimes re-experiencing something. Has anyone ever had this experience?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's common to all of us. It's the way the human mind works. Human mind always has to relate to something that it knows. Okay? When you want to know the real truth about the Bible, or about anything, doesn't matter what it is you're reading, if you want to get to the core, you have to feel what it is. Not just read what it is. But if we read words, this is why I thought we'd do this. We'd get into this book and we'll be with it rather than just reading words. You read words. Oh yeah, I had someone one time read my first book and come to me the next day and say, I read your book last night. Oh, it was great. I'm right there with you on, wait, you read that whole book in a night? I wrote the book. Took me a number of years to write it. I said, if I read it, it would take me weeks to read it. I can't read
Reading
that.
is different than comprehending.
To the book or any book where you're really going to touch on truth, you have to move yourself into it. You have to experience what it really is. If you want to see it through spiritual eyes as opposed to human eyes, you feel it. And that's true of this, of the Bible, of the Bhagavad Gita, of anything that you're going to. There's always two ways for us to experience, and we're going to talk about that in here. And the big difference between human and spirit is just that. Many, many times, we're going to talk about eternity, and we're going to talk about linear time, as we've done over and over again. Because in terms of linear time, we're experiencing everything in segmented form. Eternity,
It's infinite.
the infinity symbol, eternity is that, it's infinite, where the past, the present, and the future exist now. Spirit, I'm going to put over here, ego, human, mind. Linear time. So, these are our choices. And as we read here, we're going to find out what the core is, the core difference between these. The Bible, I'm going to talk about the Bible a little bit. The Bible contains so much information and it covers so many levels of awareness. I felt it best that I address only the points that fostered the greatest confusion. That's why there's a lot of scripture in here, but I'm not going to deal with every detail of the Bible, because the details, you could spend forever in a day trying to find details. That was not my intention. I don't want people to get lost in details. What I would like people to come to realize is we have a spiritual view, we have a human view. We can experience either or, and it's a choice. The original title is going to be called The Ultimate Choice. Ultimately, we all have to decide. We're deciding in every given moment of every given day what it is we're going to bring to ourselves in terms of experience. We can judge another, or we can interact with that other. Most of us, almost every single person, has been conditioned to judge. It's the way the human brain works. We judge, we judge, we judge. You can't use the human mind. You can't use the human mind without bringing some form of judgment into this moment. Because the human mind works that way. It takes a picture. What does this picture mean? Oh, I know what it means. Boom. Spirit, however, is not judging. But you can touch that. I'm also going to put up here love. I like the Course in Miracles says, love and fear. Only two emotions you can have.
Are you familiar at all with Listen to the Universe?
With what?
Listen to the Universe?
No, but let me say, just the title would be indicative of quieting ourselves and hearing truth.
I have it on, it was lent to me on CD,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very interesting, and it intertwines and has the approval of the Course in Miracles, its teaching.
What's
Well-
the name of it?
Listen to the Universe. It's kind of, I wouldn't suggest it to just anyone. You have to be already quite open to even tolerate it. And the way they make the little storyline at times gets a little, okay, I would rather skip that and just go to the Course in Miracles.
Right.
And then sometimes they hit points that are so powerful and so strong, and I missed half of it because it's just, you know, the way they do it, you say it. So it's one of those I'm gonna have to listen to more than once to really grasp.
Kind of like the book. You got to read it. Read
Well,
it, read
you know, we have to, what the problem is this. The problem is that intellectually we can understand something when we hear it, yes. We can intellectualize it. But then experientially, and I had this discussion with Joe, who was here, I think it was last week. I just had this discussion with him 2 nights ago? 2 nights ago. And we were talking about the patterns that we've all created for ourselves. We're all pretty much conditioned to be reactive. Something happens, we already have a program ready to run. You know, if this happens, I do that. If that happens, I do that. And if that happens, I do that. I said in here, later on we're going to get into it, where our human brain is like, it's like electricity. Always follows the path of least resistance. Whatever path is least resistance, boom, that's where the energy flow is going. So we, as human beings, living in a world as human beings, living in a third dimension, have utilized our thinking minds to get to where we are. It's part of life here. The natural thing for a human is to react. It's very contrary to our being to just interact and listen to the universe. That's not what we normally do. I just watched a Soprano, an old rerun of a Soprano the other night, and there was one of the guys in there and something happened. Someone cut in front of him and he's ready to fight right away. And Tony says to him, you know, just calm down. You know, just let it go. And then he says, yeah, he says, my mother's always telling me, take 10, you know, count to 10. Because the natural thing for us to do. Someone hits us, we hit them back. Someone does this, we do that. It's only when we can stop that flow. Okay, that's the path of least resistance. You stop the flow, you take a breath, and then you listen. When you do, if you are earnest in your desire to listen, you will hear a different way to handle it. You're not going to usually react the same way.
Let me ask you, yeah, that makes sense, and yet to go with the flow is a good thing, and that seems like somewhat spiritual, to go with your feelings and what seems natural in the moment, and you're saying you should let the Spirit guide you each moment, and don't pre-plan, don't have speeches made up, don't, you know, and yet that doesn't exactly work if we're reacting from our mind. So it's a bit of a conflict there, you know. Do you just let it flow, go with the flow, because that's Spirit guiding it, or do you have to always stop? It seems like stop and think, which we're not supposed to stop and think. We're supposed to let the Spirit guide us in the moment. So
Isn't
you
it
see my
right?
conflict there? Of
Well,
go
let
with
me-
the flow should be a good thing, and you don't want any blockage is always is a problem, whether it's in your arteries or it's in your life or whatever resistance and blockage you know
Yes.
is not a good thing.
I would say this, Gary.
Trying to
If,
reconcile the flow and the stopping.
I would say if we were in a dimension and we were all living spiritually awakened and coming from love, go with the flow.
All right, thanks.
If we are coming from a fear-based thought system and you're looking at it relative to a human form, going with the flow is going to be the obstacle to hearing a higher message.
Isn't it the difference between interacting versus reacting?
Yeah, when you're interacting, you're actually coming from a higher level of consciousness, which would be love.
Yeah,
God
which
is-
none of us were trained to do.
We haven't been trained. We have been trained to be good humans. We have been trained how to react. We all pretty much have that down. And if you look around the world, if you found that everyone in this world was an enlightened being, and they were all sharing unconditional love, I'd say go with the flow. Absolutely, stay with that. But if you find that the thought system is very limited, it's fear-based, it's not unconditional love, then you know that it might be wise to take a step back and ask for some guidance to come through. And that's where the universe will. The moment you let go of your mind, your human attachment, we'll get more into that as we get deeper into it. But let's build our foundation.
Most of life happens so fast in split seconds, and it's on and on and on.
Nanoseconds.
You very often do not have time to sit back and meditate or contemplate, or it's boom, 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 boom.
But the more you do it, I think the more
habitual it
you're
becomes.
more receptive to.
You can do it for a minute sometimes, you
Well,
Mhm.
yeah,
You're
but
not
Well,
gonna catch everything.
if you have 50 opportunities in a day and you do it once, you're on the right path.
And
You
you're
know what
gonna
I'm saying?
see the difference that it makes in you and the people around you. Believe me, I've taken
I'm
that.
saying to take a minute, often it's split seconds, and
Right.
answer a question backward, backward,
Yeah,
backward,
oh,
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
And so I guess the attitude, you have to come into all those interactions with an attitude that I'm an observer, and I'm going to interact from a loving perspective,
Yes.
and knowing that you're not going to get drawn into fights,
There you
fear,
go.
There you go.
judgment.
So
Yeah.
the way they teach it in that thing I'm listening to is you have to every moment of every day recognize this is an illusion. And if you can look at it as this is an illusion, this isn't real, you'll be more successful at doing it.
And
Now,
you'll have these
Well,
moments.
it's very difficult though. I mean, I practice and study this all the
7 days a
time.
week.
And yet I still get wrapped up in the other way
Yeah.
on a regular basis, you know. But that's where we die on a daily basis.
We do.
And
Absolutely.
You know that story that I told you about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It took taking about 5 or 6 steps and thinking of Bruce to make me change.
But you was headed for a
something.
fight though,
Oh,
wasn't you, buddy?
definitely. I was gonna.
Was fixing to kick somebody's ass. I thought that was the most amazing thing I heard.
So by being a detached observer, if somebody's yelling or doing whatever, you can just kind of say, well, isn't that interesting? Look how what that guy's doing, and wonder why he feels that way.
Mhm.
It just is that way.
Lesson or love?
Listen, we'll get deeper into that as we're going to first build this foundation for whoever's going to be listening to where we are right now.
I think you got a lot of editing to do.
We all got a lot of editing. Now-
It's taking him off track.
One such point or idea where there's a lot of confusion in this world, and I know the group here pretty much is not going to get caught up by this one, but many people will, is the fact that many people see God as a man. And if you remember that God is the summation of all that is, you must recognize that it's impossible for God to be limited to form of any kind. And that's why we've talked about God as a formless consciousness. And that's vital. It's vital for us to understand our true nature, our core essence. If you recognize that God is a formless consciousness, and we were made in the image and likeness of that, or we come from that, or we are one with that because it's everything, then of course we would all have to be a part of a formless consciousness. We are formless consciousness. That's the core essence of who we are. As spirit, not as human. As human, we see all the differences. I can look around and it's quite obvious that there's a lot of differences in terms of human. But we'll jump into that a little bit deeper as we go along. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. This was Genesis 1:27. And so the reason I put that in there, of course, was to show that it's really saying God is male and female, not A or B. It's A and B. It's male and female. And later we're going to get a little bit deeper in our understanding of formless consciousness to recognize that what we identify as male and female, and we think we are at this moment as a spiritual being, no, that's not
Just
so.
little bits of Individual units of consciousness.
We're a unit of consciousness that can take on different form. And we'll get deeper
And
into
that's
that
what
later.
God's image is.
And that's what God's
That's
image
why
is.
He's
Exactly.
created in that image.
Exactly. That's the real meaning of being created in the image and likeness of God. And of course, God
Hippie looking.
is love. Now, the Bible also says there is no fear in love. Anybody ever been afraid of anything? Ever have a fearful thought?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd say, you know what, I've had a couple. I maybe had a couple today. And the moment we have a fearful thought, I know one thing. I am not seeing my spiritual self in that moment. I am not seeing unconditional love in that moment because there is no fear in love. So if I have a fearful thought, I know I have a human ego mind. I have an attachment to something, some form, so whatever it is. Everyone's got a different thing that they have an attachment to, but that's the only thing that can bring up fear. Only thing. So I look and I say, the moment I have any kind of fearful thought, I say, oh, I'm caught again. I'm caught again. Oh, so here's where we can listen to the universe. I recognize this, and then I take a step back and I say, I don't really need to hang on to this. Please, it's yours. Please help me see the real truth of what's happening, what this is about. Because as we're interacting in the world, we're going to be guided and we're going to be polished to the point where we become awake to this. This is why we're here. We're all here to become awake to this. But
And
anyway,
after a while, there's no back and forth between it. It just is the love that you are seeing.
it becomes,
After a while, trust
it
me.
becomes the prominent self.
Exactly.
Yes. Right now, on the beginning stages of moving back to the awakened state, we spend the majority of the time caught up in the dramas, caught up in the illusions, caught up in the fear-based thinking. And this is where just going with the flow may not be helpful. It's not necessarily helpful to go with the flow if our mind is closed to the spiritual. Once you open the mind to the spiritual and you become seeing everything through loving eyes, go with the flow. Absolutely.
But is this true? Like, say if you're dealing with somebody and they're all human. You can't just go with the flow because they're not on the same track that you are.
One of the things Mother Teresa said, and I love this, it's very, very appropriate. Mother Teresa said, in the end you're going to find out it wasn't about you and them, but about you and God. Each of us is responsible. I'm responsible for me. If I'm in a room and I start, let's say I was in a room of all fundamentalist Christians and I start speaking about this. Okay.
Take cover.
There may be one or two that would disagree with me, and
That's okay.
I understand that they're going to disagree with me. Christ would say, he's being nailed to the cross, forgive them, they know not what they do. You see, the moment I allow them to grab me to where I react, I'm lost. I lost myself. I went from this down to my ego human mind, and I'm reacting to someone or something. Another lesson. Next moment, I wake up. Oh, I got caught again. I could have had a V8. We can interact or react. Basically, that's all we're going to do in every moment. React, interact.
So we got to go with the spiritual flow.
Go with the spiritual flow.
Yeah.
You can't lose.
Mhm.
Go with the spiritual flow. Now, many, almost always, you're not going to know what to do. You're not going to know what that's about. Remember, the human being mind thinks it knows everything. I'm the best judge in the world. I can tell you this person's going straight to hell, and this one, they're going right to heaven. This one is this, that one's that, this was that. I could look and I can analyze, I can pick somebody out just like this and tell you, look at this person. I know exactly who they are. Just look at the way they're dressed. It's not you wouldn't come into this place looking like that if you knew. But we can judge everyone and everything, and we're pretty good at it.
It only takes a second.
Only takes a sec, not even a
And
second.
sometimes it's second nature.
Nanosecond. We're good judging. Very, very few of us. And yet, I haven't met the individual on this planet. Very few have the omniscient view that can tell me the real truth about who and what this is in this moment? Who do you know? I haven't met the person.
But what do you do if somebody's like stealing from you or something that you know it can't? That's factual, that's not, is that factual? Because that's not judging, is it, if it's a fact?
Well, I mean, if somebody's stealing from you,
That's
they're
not
stealing
judging.
from you. What does it mean? See, to judge would be to come to a conclusion. Okay? I'm observing something, somebody's picking something up. I watched them pick it up. I observed it. Okay. What do I know? Well, I don't know the details. I don't know what's going on other than I watched that.
Right.
That's all I know. If I take it all the way out and I come to a conclusion, well, this person's rotten, this person, da, 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 and I go on and on and on. These are all judgments that I'm creating in my own mind. Okay? I'm not saying that if somebody's stealing something, that spirit wouldn't tell me, hey, give that back. That doesn't belong to you. I can't tell you that that's what I would be told to say, and I can't tell you that I would have a different.
An example was at Shane's bodybuilding contest. This kid decides he's going to walk away with the weights that we brought. And Peg, you know, she kept her cool. All she said was, is that your name on those weights? Because we had labeled each of the weights with Shane's name. And right away the kid said, well, I was just bringing them to you.
Yeah, I was going to carry them for you because they're so heavy.
Yeah, that may be true, maybe a stretch, but, you know,
Right.
so there's different ways of handling different things.
When you have
And-
spiritual in your heart, you feel the love. See, so one day I was working alone. I didn't wash the dish in the sink. So I'm so small I couldn't see the countertop. So in my teacher, there was $3 in my teacher. Okay, I wasn't washing the dish myself. The lady coming to the toilet to your husband. So I was thinking, okay, I'll be right there, moment. So I was there. And somehow I didn't know what time. So she wants one scoop of ice cream. It's toilet right there. Some accident I look at it. My desk is empty. My desk is empty, teacher. Usually customer, they take it out of money after I scoop the ice cream, then how much they take it out of the person. So I look at her hand, she's got $3.
I'll take one extra scoop, please.
Because the money, I was something, I writing something. So she had to hold that one of the yoga from here. She got $3 already ahead. And I look at my teacher, the money's gone.
She was paying for ice cream out of your tip jar?
So I look at it, I said, it's very funny. I would put it out in my teacher, this money's gone. So you and two is a customer right now. And I did right there woman, I turn around. I was the second. I said, oh God, I was the second prayer. And you need that.
I'm here like 12 hours today.
So if I so bad, I couldn't call the police. But that moment where what I learned from the spiritual, what I learned for the young, you know what I mean? I let it go. I let it go. She needed so bad. So I said, what can I serve you? She wanted
She had the money for it.
So that moment, I give her 2 horse coat. I mean 2 horse coat. And you hungry. You need it. So I give it to her. So if I spiritual mind, I feel so happy. After even she take that, she needed that, I feel very, very happy. Because human being mind, how can you do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just let it go. She got horrid.
It's like when one time our housekeeper called me, she says, Megan, you've got 2 homeless men living next to me. I'm like, what? they live here for 2 or 3 weeks, so I go in there, I said, y'all live here? Yes. Do you pay rent? No. Do you have lease? No. And you get out, they said, we have 2 or 3 more weeks. But I wasn't spiritual, I said, no.
Is this the bathroom?
Yes.
Thank you.
See, if things like that happen if you don't laugh, then you can't enjoy it, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
these things happen all the time.
But I don't think it means that you let people take advantage of
No.
you all the time either. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I would say this, to be unconditionally loving doesn't necessarily mean you're a doormat.
right.
Okay.
See, because when they were taking the weights, Peg didn't judge them. She just asked them a
I
simple
was
question.
judging.
Well, I don't care. They didn't say it.
They didn't see your
They didn't see
judgment.
that side, but I
Well,
was.
the idea is that the real truth is, in any given moment, I couldn't tell anyone how to respond to anything. Nobody can tell another how to respond. This is where listening to the universe, because of the fact that in terms of eternity, every moment that we have in this world, or any part of creation, is perfectly orchestrated. There aren't any accidents. The person who came up and took the tip money, that was a moment, that was divinely orchestrated. Someone comes and puts a gun to your head. It's hard for us to believe that someone puts a gun to your head and takes your money. That's divinely orchestrated.
Divinely orchestrated sounds like predestined.
No. Nothing is
Free
predestined.
will.
Well, we talked about this before, and I would say this: everything is predestined relative to this moment. In other words, we are all moving towards our awakened state, which is unconditionally loving, which is non-judgmental. Okay? What is necessary for me to go from where I am to here is going to be different than what is necessary for you, right? We all have to have what I would call our impure thoughts, if you will. Impure, and that's probably not the best word. Any judgmental attachments that we have, they're all going to be uniquely ours. Peggy's going to have different ones than Mickey, and Suni's going to have different. We're all going to have different ones. We all do. So I can't handle my own spiritual growth. I can't do it. If I had the omniscient view, okay, if I had the omniscient view that God has, I could handle. Well, first of all, then I wouldn't be in this situation, and I wouldn't be dealing with a human mind, and so all of it would be moved, right?
Right.
But rest assured, this is where the part comes into play, where we have the division of consciousness, where God used its own self to create the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Some call the universe. Listen to the universe. The Indians, the American Indians, would talk about the Great Spirit. The Bhagavad Gita talks about Krishna. Christians talk about, well, they were talking about the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what that is there is a consciousness which is privy to the infinite view, and it's also privy to our linear view. This is why we can't do this on our own. This is why we are always relying on, being that I was brought up Christian, we're always relying on the Holy Spirit to bring clarity to the moment. How do we bring clarity? We take a step back, bless you.
Thank you.
1, 2, whatever's necessary. Some person might have to count to 2. Someone might count to 1. Somebody may have to sit there for reach 1,000, before they can quiet them, stop reacting. We're always in that reactive mode from the human side.
I know a guy that's taken a week and a half of bicycle riding, and he's still not gotten over certain moments.
Yeah.
You have anger and so on.
Yeah. Well, whatever it takes. I one time was trying to clear something. I was stuck, if you will, and not reaching what I considered my connected state. Let me just call it that. My connected state was lacking, and I was looking for some clarity. And I did a water fast for 2 weeks. I said like this. Now, tell me the ego wasn't part of this at first, because I said, I'll die before I will eat if I don't get this clarity that I'm looking for. I'm not moving forward until this comes. And I wasn't going to eat, just water. Took about 2 weeks. After that, I got the clarity I was looking for and I ate. Everything is going to be relative to the individual, and depending on where we happen to be. But it's when it looks as though it's preordained, it's only preordained relative to what we're calling for. What the next moment is going to be is in a state of flux. So it's not necessarily preordained. We have infinite potentialities. And as we change our mind and change our view, we change our vibration. We change our vibrational field. As we change our vibrational field, everything changes around us. Now, they're talking about now going on in the world, some of the global changes. And I read something on the internet about the solar flares. You read anything about the solar flares? And the solar flares, they say, are affecting the electromagnetic field around the Earth, because everything is electromagnetic energy. As you change the electromagnetic field around the Earth, you're changing the weather patterns. Right? Everything is interconnected. As we change our vibration, we're changing our field, which is changing the field around us, and so on and so on. So what was preordained got changed. Is the world going to be here tomorrow? Maybe. Maybe not. Can we alter it? Yeah. We can alter. We alter our personal, and we alter the collective. Every one of us. So yes, it is preordained to a degree.
And do you think, I'm sorry, do you think 2012 or around there? See, I think...
I try not to think.
Yeah, how about that? Because that's... Where's the head? I think the big shift is going to be more people being more spiritual. I don't think it's going to be...
It could.
The world's going to blow up on January 1st, or, if the plague's going to hit on that day or whatever. That stuff's happening and will continue to happen. But I think people are going to become more enlightened.
Well, it may be so. Maybe they will be. And I look and I say, what really is important is, where are you? Are you more enlightened?
Right.
Everything is relative to the individual self. To me, I know this. His ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is eternity is infinite. Eternity is the past. We've talked about this. The present and the future. Existing now equals now. Right? Mm-hmm. Do we agree with that? Or do you see how the past, the present, and the future is always now in terms of eternity?
It's one of those things where an election, or how you said it earlier.
What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah. I've been to enough of these classes. I hear that routinely. Do I fully comprehend that? No, I do not.
Okay. Do you accept it's possible that it's true?
Yes.
Okay. Let's just go there for a moment. Let's just say it's possible that it's true. The past, the present, and the future are not. Because this is vital to letting go of our attachment to the physical form. Where eternity has everything happening now. Linear time, where we happen to be in right now, is a limitation that can be broken. It's a limitation we've accepted to play by. It's the rules of the game. You know, if we go to a basketball game, we don't bring our baseball bat. Right? It doesn't. Hockey stick wouldn't be appropriate either. You go to a certain place to play a certain game, you play by the rules of the game. Right? And linear time, I would say in linear time,
Third dimensional.
third dimension, it doesn't matter that this is all happening now. If I'm stuck in my thinking mind and I am in here and I can't see beyond it, this is a very real experience for me.
Right.
It's very real for all of us here if we're stuck in it.
I think about that every time Sally Fields does her Boniva commercial. This is my only body and my one life. I think of this every time.
Well, again, this is where beliefs come into play. And the moment you can let go of the belief, the moment you've let go of the limitation. If you believe something, then that's it. You're not going beyond that. You can't have an experience that goes beyond your belief. None of us can.
I've come to realize.
This is where linear time comes into play and limits us. We've all bought into, we're born, we live, we die. Anyway, we'll get deeper into that because we're right where we're headed right now. This is what the beginning is about. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to address the fact that at our core, we are a formless consciousness. Let's start there because that's a good place for us to hang on to. To all those who have the notion that God is a man, I can say this, you may want to reconsider. To all those women who have embraced the idea of the goddess as being the form of God, I would offer the same advice. The truth is, God may possess the energy of both male and female, but God is formless and without gender in ultimate reality. Okay, so again, formless, expressing itself in form, everything that exists, bar none, is interconnected to that formless consciousness. Okay, so what we've got is we've got different states. And I talked about the water situation, because water is something we can get a visual. We got water, we slow the molecules down, we got ice, we speed up the molecules, we got steam, and the steam vanishes, it's gone, right? But it's still all water. God expressing itself in all these different dimensions of time and space is still God, regardless whether it's this table, whether it's the air that we breathe, whether it's the water we swim in, whether it's this body. It's all manifested out of a formless consciousness, which is what energy comes from. Okay? And every thought we have is energy, and energy interrelates with energy. So this is how every thought we have is creative. Every thought we have is creative, and it's going to interact with creation. And later we'll talk about the frequencies and positives and negatives and so on and so on. But that's something that's very, very vital for us to understand, because if you want to know yourself, you have to start going beyond the attachment to the physical. You have to go back to the core. You have to go to the substance of what we are, even beyond the subatomic particles. We are pure consciousness. And if I am, you are. And if you are, everyone is. And if everyone is, our picture and our perceptions are twisted, to say the least. Right? So that's a good place for us to begin. So in Genesis it says, male and female, he created them and blessed them and named them man when they were created. This is out of the Bible now. Okay? He created them man, not Adam, not Eve, but them together. Them were man. So that's sometimes when I talk about man or mankind, I'm talking about the collective. I'm not talking about gender. And that's something that we should probably try to get beyond too, is our concept of gender. And it's very difficult, mind you. I'm living in a body too, and I can see with these eyes, and I see male, female, most times.
I think that there's two kinds of spirits though, because God did have the woman's kind of, the female spirit. There's a whole different spirit than the male spirit.
There are attributes that the female gender would have that the male wouldn't have. I would agree. And vice versa.
And also, if you're in a good relationship, then you bring out the best in him and vice versa.
Okay.
Complementary is what I'm trying to say.
Complementary. And I would say this, in this dimension, the gender is a real part of this experience. In dimensions beyond this, in terms of ultimate reality, there's no gender anymore. Now that's hard for us to wrap our minds around, and I'm not going to get into that just yet.
But, and I don't know, I mean, I've read that when you incarnate
Right?
within your aura,
Mm-hmm.
you bring energies from past experiences.
Absolutely.
So I have to assume when you leave this body and you go to a star or wherever you're going, that those experiences go with you.
Absolutely they do. I mean, remember this. You've got eternity. You've got linear time as part of the eternal moment that you're journeying through.
Well, if it didn't go with you, it'd all be a waste.
In our core being, everything that you've experienced up to this moment, and later on I'm going to talk about the journey of soul, and I had some diagrams in here to show as we're releasing our ego attachment, we're becoming more spiritually awakened. That doesn't mean that you don't have that part of the experience, part of your makeup. You know, Suni experienced a moment and she just shared it with us. Well, that is something that altered her vibrational field. It's not like, oh, you altered your vibrational field, it's gone now. It's not. It's a part of the makeup. It's a part of the totality of who and what you are as a spiritual being. In terms of our evolutionary process.
Right.
Okay, and we're going to stop there. I'm not going to go beyond the evolutionary process, because everything that you have experienced in this life or any lifetime is still with you. It's still with you. It may not be a conscious thought that you can recall right here, right now. And this is where now I know what you've mentioned, and there's been people who have been under hypnosis and pulled, you know, oh, in a past life they had this experience and that experience and so on and so on. Under hypnosis, many of us can recall certain events in prior lifetimes. And I'm not going to jump into that part just yet. We're going to stay at the beginning for just now. Here it is reiterated that both forms of energy, it takes both forms to make up the whole, and neither is complete without the other. I do not mean to imply that it is necessary to be in a relationship with the opposite sex in order to be complete. However, being in relationship with the opposite sex sometimes can bring out attributes that wouldn't necessarily be brought out without being in that relationship. It can be beneficial. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to. I am saying that at the level of energy beyond physical matter, there is a merging of sexes and they become one. Now, again, that's something we'll talk about later. I don't want to jump into that just
You know, I was
yet.
just telling Gary, there's something there because in the gay relationships, there's the female
Right,
and the male. Even though there may be two males and two females.
right. Yeah. Well, again, you know, well, we'll get into that later. I don't want to, not just yet, not. The world beyond time and space. In Genesis 2:4, you will find your first hint of the concept of the past, the present, and the future existing as one. And this was in Genesis where it said, these are the generations, plural, of the heavens, again in the plural, and the earth, when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. That was Genesis 2:4. Notice that the generations of the heavens, the ones to come, were created in the day. Now this is a very hard stretch for us. Very hard stretch. They were created in the day that God made the earth and the heavens. This will help you to begin that to understand that in ultimate reality, time as man understands it does not exist. In other words, the limitation of linear time. In terms of ultimate reality, these two, these two, one is true in terms of ultimate reality, one is a real experience to get us to this. Okay, we talked about the dimensions of time and space, and we'll get back into that a little bit deeper later on. I will talk about it more in great detail in part 2, but for now it is enough to say that what seems real and what is real are two different things. I'm going to touch on it just a little bit. When it says that God made the generations of the heavens and of the earth, and they were created in a day. Now here's a real stretch. This is a real stretch. This is a picture that I had seen, and I wasn't quite sure how to express this. But we've talked about infinite potentialities. Okay, infinite potentialities. And what I mean by that is, in terms of linear time, here we are in this dimension. Here we are in this moment. Right here. Now, in terms of eternity, the past, the present, the future exists now. Anyone ever hear of this super string theory?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What is that? I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
You know,
Gary,
I was 32 years old before I heard about the Big Bang Theory.
what is the super string theory? Anybody got an idea of what that would mean to them?
Everything's interconnected.
Interconnected? Getting into modern physics with the
Right,
super
Right,
string
right.
that's what it is. So
Modern
all
physics?
the dimensions is one. All the,
So in other words,
I rented the DVD, not him.
you have a class Pat.
how about this? How about we said the super string theory was representing an interconnected now?
Yeah.
How would that work?
Yeah.
Because what it's basically saying is that the various dimensions within time and space are all interconnected and happening now. This is where Einstein, as a physicist, was saying, he said, the past, the present, and the future mean nothing to a physicist such as myself. To a physicist, they understand that, well, not all physicists, but where he was headed was this linear track. Hello, this linear track where we're headed here, and this one, and this one, and this one, all exist now.
They haven't been able to prove.
No, they haven't been able, and they'll never prove this,
It's a
because
theory.
here's one of the reasons why they can't prove it. And they're talking about, they were talking about trying to prove this out. And they were observing, I guess it was observing photons. And while they were observing the photon, what they recognized was the observation of observing the photon was altering the properties of the photon, which means they couldn't prove what the photon was without observation.
Gotcha.
Okay? Can't be done. Why? Because everything's interconnected. The moment you engage into the observation of something, that alters that something to the effect that its properties are now affected. Okay? So it's never going to be proved out. You're not going to prove these things out because the interaction changes properties. Our thought, every thought you have is going to change something. It has to. It's energy. Every thought's energy. Energy manifests itself into form. Form is changed by changing the energy flow. Right? So anyway, we're not going to get too deep into that part of it, but we just want to get a base, generalized idea of what's going on here. And this being true, this is directly related to infinity. Okay? And in terms of infinity, where, let's say, the past, the present, and the future are always now. We have infinite potentialities of pathways that we can walk on. Okay? And we're on that pathway as long as we are operating at a certain frequency. Does that make sense? Kind of, right?
Well, that's why God could walk on water.
Walk on water, there you go. We're all operating in this dimension right here. We're on a linear track right now in this dimension. This dimension has a frequency to it. I'm sure in your readings, you've probably encountered people that are talking about the earth evolving into another dimension. The frequency here is changing. And the earth itself, Mother Earth, is going to change into another frequency. Maybe so. I'm not gonna get into that, whether it is or it isn't. I'm going to say this. Everything in terms of energy is interconnected. And if in fact we had enough people here believing that this world was going to evolve into the fifth dimension, the world will evolve into the fifth dimension on this linear track.
Be cool.
Peggy, I'm sorry.
Well, when I look at what you just read about Genesis, these are the generations of the heavens. I take generations out and just switch it with dimensions.
Okay, dimensions. Yeah, you could say that. These are the dimensions. Because, well, see, there's two ways of looking at that. When you took out generations, you went from this linear third dimension and took that same principle to the dimensions beyond this dimension, which is, it's fine, because what's true here is true there. It's absolutely right. We can alter the circumstances in the flow of this dimension, and we can also alter the circumstances in the next dimension, and the one above that, and the one above that, and the one above that. We can be anywhere within creation because it's all happening and available to all of us relative to our ability to move into an unconditionally love or stay in our fear-based thought system.
Do you think it's how in the now we travel through various dimensions? Because, I mean, I can be
Absolutely.
unconditionally loving one moment and the next moment fear-based and...
Absolutely. Bhagavad Gita, remember Bhagavad Gita talking about we begin in ignorance, we get into passion, we get very passionate about certain things, then we move into the mode of goodness. We want to go about and do good everywhere. I want to do good, I want to do... These are all states that are pertinent to this dimension. Okay? They're still limited to this dimension. And we didn't quite get into the good and bad yet. I thought we were going to get there tonight, but we're going to get into the Garden of Eden, where we're going to hear about the